A lot of what we've been talking about today obviously has to do with the tapestry of threads, as I mentioned earlier. In our original board of directors, you'll see some faces there with Mr. Hamilton in the middle, Ken Strickler up at the top. We thought Ken might join us today. Miles Lasser's in that picture, Betty Lene, Carl Kappa, Marion Panzarella, Francis Groh, Betty Erickson. These are some folks that certainly had a vision when the foundation was started, 34 years ago. But Ken Strickler, if Ken was standing up here next to me, he'd be talking about the first comments that he made to the board of directors is we need to raise unrestricted funds. Unrestricted funds are going to be the key to our ability to address the needs, of the community, not only today in 1978, but going forward. In the time that I've been involved here at the foundation, those various elements that we've been looking at is serious issues have again continued to shift. And so that need for unrestricted money has not changed. To give you a little idea where we are within our asset breakdown, you can see on the pie chart behind me, up in the upper right-hand corner, is the distribution of our total assets that is unrestricted. It's called community service. 26% of our assets fall into that category. The largest category, you can see at the bottom at 40%, is the scholarship area. Those of you that have that represent a nonprofit organization and have endowment funds with us fall in that upper left-hand corner, the orange piece that's a designated or agency fund, which is at 25%. But keep that 26 in mind, because that's where we are today. The board passed a strategic plan 2 years ago, and as part of the action steps with that plan, they've established a goal of increasing that unrestricted asset level up to 33%. That, and there is a date attached to that of December 31st, the year 2020. So that's the goal that we're looking at right now. So many of you may sit there and say, well, why would the foundation feel that they needed 1/3 of their assets unrestricted to address these emerging needs? Aren't they able to accomplish the tasks of today and the tasks of tomorrow with the amount they have? But what we wanted to do is just give you one example of a need in our community today. And we have been supporting that through our unrestricted funds. And I'm going to ask Vince Horrigan to come up, and he's going to share with you some of the issues around the lake right now. All of you know Vince from a variety of different places in our community. Recently retired about a year or so ago from the Red Cross. He's been actively involved in a number of organizations. He's helped us at the Community Foundation with some volunteer efforts, which he does every month. Currently serving on the Chautauqua County Legislature as a legislator. But I'm going to turn this over to Vince and see how our efforts with the lake certainly are a significant need in our community that need to be addressed. Vince?
Thanks, Randy. I appreciate it. Always an honor to be here. I told my wife when we win the lottery, she said, what do you want to do with the money? I said, I want to give every penny to the Community Foundation. We're still working on that, but we did at least make estate arrangements in our estate plans for the Community Foundation this year, and I just think so much of this organization. And I just want to tell you briefly about, in my role, not only on the legislature, but in the community, Chautauqua Lake is one of the issues that's near and dear to so many people's hearts. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about why it is important to all of us. Of course, it starts with money. What is the economic impact? And primarily in the tourism and visitors area. In 2011, we don't have the stats obviously for 2012, tourism accounts for about $170+ million in Chautauqua County, a major part of obviously our economic viability. And of that, 83% of the folks come pretty much from May to October, trying to get the skiers and the snow issues, the Visitors Bureau's trying to work that. But it's pretty much that when 83%, but half the people come during the summer. So June, July, and August. Those summer tourists come, and it's all about the beauty of Chautauqua County. During those 3 months, our best estimate, about $35 million goes directly into our economy because of Chautauqua Lake. So in 3 months, $35 million bucks. And it is a major player not only in sales tax, but in bed tax, but obviously in restaurants and livelihoods. So it's important. 1,400 seasonal jobs. And some people talk about, tourism jobs versus others. But these jobs are great jobs, especially putting kids through college in second incomes and in some areas primary incomes. But it is about jobs as well. How about those second homeowners? $40 million in 2011. Okay, it's increased. These are second homeowners. They're CEOs and CFOs and leaders in communities back in their hometowns in Cleveland and Pittsburgh. They pay for their own schools. They pay their own property taxes, but they come up here to Chautauqua County because of Chautauqua Lake and other tourism spots. Inside Chautauqua Lake, between 430 and 394 is about 1% of the number of properties in Chautauqua County. But that 1% pays 26% of the tax levy. Lake property right now assessed at about $2,500 a foot, depending where you are, more or slightly less. But it is a major part of our tax levy, which is paying for schools and paying for county government and all the things that we need to run. What's the problem? A tapestry of weeds. This is the problem. You've seen it in the newspapers. We've been talking about it tonight before the legislature. One of the committees is a resolution to discuss this. Submerged aquatic vegetation, the weeds, okay, and they change all the time. The lake is a living, breathing, changing organism, but it's these weeds and the impact that the blue-green algae blooms and the weeds around shorelines and around area restaurants and in the lake that has got to be addressed. Obviously, it impacts not only the look of the lake, but the recreation. And I hear this all the time as a representative from Ellery and part of Chautauqua. Believe me, I hear it, as do other legislators. What are you doing about the weeds? Obviously, it's big bucks. This year, the budget for the community or for the Chautauqua Lake Association is about $500,000, which is the primary method right now to manage those weeds. On Lakeside Drive in Bemis Point, if you happen to drive down there, you will see more homes for sale than I've ever seen in my life. 12 homes for sale. There's various reasons why people are selling, but I am constantly reminded about the lake, about the impact, the value of property, just the number of buyers that come in, especially during the summer, and look out there and decide whether to invest in that home in Chautauqua County. Now this says short-term maintenance plan. This is the current maintenance plan. I'm talking maintenance. I'm not talking fixing the weeds. How do we maintain that lake? Right now, it's Chautauqua Lake Association. They are the only one that actually works on the lake. Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy does great jobs in mitigation and planning. There's a Chautauqua Lake Management Commission that is doing a plan that we'll talk about in a second. And Soil and Water is involved in stream bank restoration. But CLA is the one, as we speak right now, that is working, trying to clear the areas around shorelines, around the lake, so that navigation and recreation can take place. They also record scientific data for the lake. And this includes data from the use of biological mechanisms and insects, the condition of the water, the health of the water as well. And in order to do this, foundation support primarily has been incredible to be able to provide significant investment in capital equipment. That capital equipment is changing. We have harvesters, but there's also additional methods that are being looked at as we speak. Cummins is very much involved in the engineering and technology and looking to see if there's other opportunities. So how does this get paid for? Those unrestricted funds from Chautauqua Region Community Foundation, $30,000 in 11 and 12. The government is kicking in, state, county, local towns and villages. Maybe not as much as someone would like, but I can tell you on the county legislature, that whole property tax issue is looming over every one of our heads to try to minimize the impact of property taxes on Chautauqua County. As I said, corporate funders include a huge presence from Cummins, Zam and Matson, and others that are really helping us. Fundraisers, we do those. Chautauqua Lake Association does those. There's a Paddle for Lake fundraiser you'll hear more about in August, and I hope you support it. Well, that's the short term. What about the long term? We need to create this, it's called a Submerged Aquatic Vegetation Master Plan. One that's balanced and practical. This is really, well, what are we doing long term? This is generated by the Chautauqua Lake Management Commission to look at what is the future and how are we going to do that. The county has put in money to this. Chautauqua Lake Partnership, this is Karen Rhine's group down there in the Burtis Bay area, of $20,000. Chautauqua Region Community Foundation, thank you again, has invested. The Army Corps of Engineers has some money into this. And it will be the way that we look ahead for controlled alternatives to harvesting. What does that mean? Physical options, such as weed pulling and barriers and mats that are on the lake floor. There's some places those will work in and around docks. There's other places they won't. Behavioral. There is now a compact, municipal compact, which has new ordinances, new laws that will control not only water runoff, stream bank runoff, use of fertilizers and those things, which is important. Mechanical, harvesting, and dredging, those types of things are looked at. Obviously we're harvesting now. Dredging is another part of that. Biological, the caddis fly is out there. We want those guys to be hungry. We want them to keep eating those weeds, but there are other options. And of course, chemical. You've seen that recently. There are areas in the lake that may be able to support chemical treatment, but there are areas that do not. The lake is not just one body of water, it's made up in zones, and so there will be, through this master plan, the use of these various techniques where the lake will hit different thresholds and different techniques will be applied. So we should have this completed by April of 2013. So what does that mean for the future? CLA is always going to need maintenance funding because there's shorelines that got to be cleaned up and there's harvesting and weed cutting that's going to have to be done. The watershed management plan, which is stream bank restoration, which is dredging, other things, has got to be funded. And that is going to be a big ticket item. And that's where we need to do everything we can to get state help for that. The master plan for the subaquatic vegetation that I talked about, chemical applications are not cheap. Dredging is not cheap. All of these will have to be funded in the future. Education material for homeowners and programs to make sure that people that live around the lake are on board. Obviously, unrestricted funds, turning to the community foundation, other foundations. When you get foundation support, it is amazing how that opens new doors to both private donations, to government funding. As I testified last time before the legislature, another $10,000 from you is going to be matched by $10,000 from the community foundation. That always gets people's attention. So thank you for what you do in our community, and the lake is really, really critical, and the use of unrestricted funds is what it's about. Thanks.